Your Honor, my client does not wish to divorce and is asking the court to mandate counseling. She believes that their marriage can be repaired with just a bit of help, a lawyer argued, referring to my soon-to-be ex-wife, Julie. My lawyer stood up next, asserting, Your Honor, a year-long affair with several men, resulting in the birth of a child, is hardly just an issue, especially since DNA testing confirms the child is not my client's. There's no point in dragging this farce of a marriage out any longer. Counseling won't resolve anything. The judge, however, replied, It is precisely because of the child that I am inclined to order counseling. A child deserves a stable home. I interrupted loudly, If you think I'm going to raise that cheating woman's child. My lawyer cringed as the judge slammed his gavel. One more word, and I will hold you in contempt of court, he warned. I am ordering a month of counseling, 2 sessions each week. You will attend, Mr. Stedman, or face consequences. He glared at me briefly, then slammed his gavel once more. Julie, with a smug expression, watched as I walked into the counselor's office. I'm Dr. Sullivan, but feel free to call me Gerald. May I address you as Brian? He asked, smiling. No, you may not. You will address me as Mr. Stedman, I replied curtly. Brian, there's no need, Julie started, but I cut her off. And you don't speak to me at all, I snapped at her. Let's calm down, Dr. Sullivan interjected. Please, Mr. Stedman, take a seat, he said, gesturing toward one of 2 chairs arranged beside his desk. I dragged my chair about 6 feet away from Julie before sitting down. Gerald sighed and began, but I didn't catch his words as I took out my AirPods and played music. Gerald looked at me briefly, then turned to speak with Julie. I couldn't hear them, so I just scrolled through my phone, enjoying my music. After about 15 minutes, I noticed Julie standing up, glaring at me before storming out of the room. I took out my AirPods and said, All right, doctor, great session, see you on Thursday. I'm cancelling the sessions and will submit my report to the judge, he replied. Even better, I replied, leaving the office. When I returned to court, the judge was visibly displeased. Give me one reason why I shouldn't hold your client in contempt, he demanded of my lawyer. Your Honor, my client attended the session as ordered. It was the counselor who cancelled further sessions, my lawyer explained. The counselor's report states that your client made no effort whatsoever to participate, putting on headphones and ignoring them completely, the judge shot back. The order required attendance, my lawyer reiterated, and my client was there. The counselor deemed further sessions would be unproductive. We asked the court to grant the divorce. Absolutely not, the judge responded firmly. I am ordering for more weeks of counseling. Mr. Stedman will attend, and this time, he will participate. The office was set up exactly as before when I returned, 2 chairs positioned a foot apart in front of Dr. Sullivan's desk. He sat behind it, the desk bare except for a yellow legal pad and a photo of a woman in her mid-30s and a child, likely around 6. Mr. Stedman, the doctor said, please take a seat. Once again, I started to move my chair. Julie reached out, but I recoiled, declaring, I'm making it clear, any physical contact will be considered an attack and met with the appropriate response. Julie gasped, pulling back. I resumed moving the chair and sat down, pulling out my phone again. Mr. Stedman, the judge ordered you to participate in this session, Dr. Sullivan reminded me. I'm aware, I replied, and I'm using my phone to record the session, so there's proof I participated. My lawyer mentioned that some counselors can have their own agendas, and since my soon-to-be ex-wife has been seeing you for a while, I believe you may have already formed a bias. And if I don't want you to record this session, the doctor inquired. Then I'll return to court and request a different counselor, I answered. I have that option, though I haven't taken it because it would cause further delays. Julie, are you okay with this session being recorded? Dr. Sullivan asked her. Whatever, she said, waving her hand dismissively. Can we just get started? All right, the doctor said, I'd like to start by setting our expectations. Since I've spoken with Julie a few times already, I'll ask her to share her hopes for these sessions and the outcome she wishes for. I ask that you refrain from commenting until she's finished. Then, I'll ask for your input, Mr. Stedman. I sat silently, avoiding looking at Julie as she began. First of all, Brian, she started, but I cut her off with a growl, don't speak to me. Julie, direct your comments to me, Dr. Sullivan instructed, and explain what you want Mr. Stedman to understand. She continued, I want him to know how deeply sorry I am for hurting him. I know what I did was wrong, but I was so lonely with him away at work and on business trips. I regret the pain I've caused him, and if I could, I'd go back and change the past. I love him more than anything and truly believe we can overcome this. If he would just give me another chance, I'd prove to him I can be the best wife anyone could ask for. We could raise our child together, give them a good life, and maybe even have another child. I want us to be a family. I know we can get through this. Dr. Sullivan smiled at her. Thank you, Julie. Now, Mr. Stedman, what would you like to say? I gave him a cold look. I would like to see this lying, deceitful person suffer, I said, causing Julie to burst into tears and run out of the room. That wasn't very helpful, Gerald remarked. I'm not trying to be helpful, I replied. That woman cheated on me for a year with countless men, got pregnant, and tried to claim the baby was mine. If I hadn't gotten suspicious and asked for a DNA test, I'd be locked into paying child support for a child that isn't mine. So, Doc, tell me, how am I supposed to react? It's natural to feel angry, but you need to move past that anger and think about what you had, he responded. Do you even understand what you're saying? I snapped. Have you ever felt that the person you love, the one you've trusted with your heart and soul, who you'd do anything to protect, could betray you so deeply that it shakes your sanity? When I realized what was happening, it broke me, and I wanted to do something reckless. And did you notice she never once apologized? I continued. Not for being with all those men, not for the endless lies, not for forgetting she was pregnant, not even for not knowing who the father of her child was. The only thing you can be certain of is that it wasn't the man who was supposed to raise that child. That man was me. So, since you have no clue what it's like to walk in my shoes, don't sit there with your holier-than-thou grin and bookish advice, telling me to move past my anger. Right now, my anger is all I've got left. Just let me cut that unfaithful woman from my life and try to salvage what's left. Does that count as participating? I shot back at him as I left his office. When I got home, I started preparing for the next session. Maybe, finally, I'd get my point across. The following week, as I entered his office, Gerald stated, I've asked Julie to allow this session to be just between us. I think we'll get further that way. As long as it still counts toward the court-ordered counseling, I'm glad not to be in the same room as her, I replied, taking my seat and placing an envelope on my lap. Can we avoid name-calling? It isn't helpful and only sets us back, he urged. I don't care about being helpful, I said flatly. I just want to get through these sessions and erase that unfaithful person from my life. She's determined to make this as hard as possible, not wanting the divorce because of the prenup. She's trying to push me into taking her back, but that's not happening. And what about the child? He's innocent. Doesn't he deserve to be spared? He asked. He's neither my responsibility nor my problem, I shot back. According to your logic, I should take in anyone who can't control themselves and ends up pregnant. Those kids aren't my responsibility, and neither is this one. Why are you convinced there's only one way this can end? He pressed. You clearly care deeply for her. Feelings like that don't just disappear overnight. Your anger is masking those feelings, but they'll fade, and when they do, you'll see there are still feelings you can build on, feelings that could help you rebuild your relationship and even strengthen it. That smile of his crept back, and I fought the urge to hit him. I decided it was time for him to get a taste of his own advice. Glancing at a family photo on his desk, I said, You have a beautiful family. How long have you been married? We're not here to discuss he started, but I cut him off. 11 years, if I'm right? Married your college sweetheart, waited to have kids, and then came Ethan. He must be around 9 now. That photo must have been taken a few years back. How did you, he began, but I went on, did you know Cheryl has her own secrets? When she claims to be at Pilates on Wednesdays, she's actually at the Motel 8 on Patter, seeing her personal trainer. That's ridiculous. He stammered, though he'd gone pale, and doubt flickered in his eyes. Really? I said, pulling a set of photos from the envelope and laying them out on his desk. One by one, they showed a slender woman entering a hotel room with a younger, muscular man. His arm was around her waist, and they looked at each other with unmistakable affection. I placed a DVD on his desk next. There's footage, too, if you want proof of what goes on inside that room. It's pretty graphic, so I'd advise against watching. I made the mistake of watching my own investigator's footage, and those images haunt me still. He looked like he was going to be sick. And one more thing, I said. Ethan. No, he whispered, please, God, no. I pulled a DNA report from the envelope. It seems the trainer isn't the first affair. He might be too young to be Ethan's father, but whoever is, it isn't you, I said gently. He rushed into what I assumed was his office bathroom, where I heard him retching. When he returned, ashen and with tears streaming down his face, I asked, do you understand now? Can you feel the pain I carry and why I need her out of my life? He nodded weakly. Good, I said. But there's something else you need to know. A look of dread crossed his face. Is there more? He asked, his voice heavy with despair. It's all a lie, I replied. None of it is real. As far as I know, your wife is just as loyal and loving as you believe, and Ethan is indeed your son. But the photos, he started. Photoshop, I said simply. With some online posts and a bit of effort, you'd be surprised what's possible. Anyone competent could tell they are fakes. Here are the originals I used. His face turned red, and I wondered if he might lash out. The DVD? He asked. Blank, I replied. And the DNA report? That's actually from the cheating jerk's child, with names and dates altered. He sat there, shocked, as fresh tears fell. Why would you do this? What was your goal in tearing apart my life and marriage? That was never my intent, I said. That's why I told you right away it was fake. I didn't want to cause lasting harm, I just wanted you to feel, for a moment, the loss, anger, and pain I live with every day. For those few minutes, you felt what I live with all the time. Now, imagine sitting here, being forced to listen to her talk about love and reconciliation. It's a nightmare I can't escape. There are laws against cruel and unusual punishment, but they don't apply here. Gathering the documents, I put them back in the envelope. You can dispose of these however you want. I truly regret having to do this, but you needed to understand. And with that, I left his office. Your Honor, I have the report from the court-ordered counseling my client attended, my lawyer addressed the judge. I have a copy, the judge replied gruffly. It seems the counselor believes that, even with only 3 of the required 8 sessions completed, this marriage is beyond saving. For everyone's well-being, including the child, the best option is to grant dissolution. Yes, Your Honor. I request the divorce be finalized as per the petition. The judge looked at me for a long moment. I held my gaze straight ahead, avoiding eye contact. Finally, he declared, granted, and struck his gavel.